Romance SAJA is one of the most mysterious characters in K-pop Demon Hunters, but did you know there are several fun facts about him that many fans ended up missing? Half demon. Have you ever noticed that Romance always has a different look compared to the other SAJA boys? It's not just because he doesn't talk much. He carries this strange aura, almost like he's not entirely from the underworld. A lot of people have already suggested that he might be half human, and there's one scene that makes this theory even more interesting. When the hunters go looking for help for Rumi, who's having trouble with her voice, Zoe takes her friends to Dr. Han's office. On the wall, there's a picture with some very familiar figures, and among them is someone who looks a lot like Romance, just in a much more human version. That gave fans the impression that, at some point, he might have been part of that mysterious group and maybe even used to be human for real. The curious part is that when he finally entered the K-pop world, he already knew every single move, like he had gone through some kind of training program before debuting. It wasn't that classic learning the hard way. He acted like someone who had the instruction manual from the start. And that's where the most interesting theory comes in. What if Romance is actually a half-demon who ended up falling into the underworld because of a dark pact? Maybe he sold part of his essence in exchange for fame and success, which would explain why he always seems to shine more than he should. But every coin has two sides. Could it be that now, with the weight of that pact, he's starting to regret his choices? And if he did sell his soul for success, did his human version ever actually get to experience fame? Or did Guima just trick him all along? If it's true, this story makes Romance a way more complex character than he first appears. He's not just the guy head over heels for Mira, but someone carrying a supernatural debt on his shoulders, and that gives way to way more drama and memes. But Romance isn't just about longing looks and unreturned crushes. Behind that love-struck and insistent vibe, there's an entire character built with layers of symbolism, and it's by digging into those elements that we can better understand why he acts the way he does, and what makes him one of the most interesting and underrated characters in K-pop Demon Hunters. Ready to dive into this awesome video? In love with Mira. Romance is so crazy about Mira that he honestly feels like a character from a Mexican telenovela who accidentally fell into a K-drama. Proof of that showed up during the Huntrix fan sign event. The atmosphere was already intense, but the moment Romance sat down next to Mira, bam! He instantly switched to lovesick puppy mode. He spent the entire time just staring at her. His gaze was so obvious it might as well have been a giant neon sign flashing, "I love you!" Meanwhile, Mira switched on her invisibility mode and started ignoring him. Seriously, not for a single second did he take his eyes off her, and she didn't even consider looking back. Even though many fans shipped the two of them, Mira didn't really care much for Romance's advances. The fandom caught on quickly and started shipping her with Abby instead. Because let's be real, Mira and Abby seem to have way more chemistry than she ever did with poor Romance. While Abby brought actual connection, Romance just kept bringing the intense stares. But what I really admire about this guy is his persistence. He wasn't content with being ignored. Every chance he gets, there he is, steady, determined, throwing piercing looks like Cupid's arrows. If staring could win someone over, Mira would have already taken his last name, shared a health plan, and adopted 2 cats in a city apartment. Of course, the fans ended up divided. Some think it's adorable and root for Romance to finally get a shot, while others are only here for the drama, because shipping Mira with Abby is just way more fun. In the end, this whole Romance and Mira thing feels more like a reality show. Nobody knows if it's going to turn into a wedding or just a flirty friendship. Ignored. A lot of K-pop Demon Hunters fans just couldn't warm up to Romance. The poor guy even ended up getting a bit of bullying from the fandom itself. The reason? His chin. Tons of people teased him, saying it was longer than the other characters, which supposedly threw off his whole look. But then came the plot twist. According to director Maggie Kang herself, it was intentional. Romance was designed with every feature meant to represent love and the heart. His thinner chin, for example, symbolizes the tip of a heart. His hair, which arches into 2 curves over his head, forms the top half of that same heart. In other words, he's basically a walking Cupid, just in idol form. The problem is that this poetic explanation didn't exactly convince fans, who kept clowning on him. The result? Romance ended up being labeled the least good-looking of the group, a truly underrated character. And it wasn't just about looks. Another big factor was that the character barely spoke. His interactions were super rare, and outside of the songs, we almost never heard his voice. How do you win over the fan base like that? An idol who doesn't talk ends up feeling like an extra with fancy lighting. That really hurt his image. While other SAJA Boys members got screams, posters, and fans with hearts in their eyes, Romance was the one standing in the corner of the stage with polite applause. Maybe if he had been given more lines and screen time, he would have won more people over. But for now, he remains the overlooked member, known more for his chin than his charm. Before we go on uncovering more secrets about Romance and K-pop demon hunters, drop a comment down below. Heart. Deleted scene. If you think Jinu is the group's official class clown, you might be completely wrong. Romance almost stole that title in a deleted scene that, if it had made it to the screen, would have gone down in history. According to director Maggie Kang, during the performance of the song Soda Pop, Romance was supposed to pull Abby's pants down right at the moment they were handing out gifts to the kids. Just imagine the chaos. It would have been one of those totally unexpected humor moments that probably would have had the audience bursting into laughter. After all, nothing screams classic idol energy like a prank on stage, right? But Sony didn't exactly think it was a genius idea. The scene was cut without mercy, with the justification that it could send the wrong message to the public. Even so, it's easy to imagine the impact. Fans would have loved seeing this playful, mischievous side of Romance. He could have shown a whole different layer to his walking heart persona and revealed a funnier, more laid-back side, something that might even have changed how a lot of people saw him. In the end, Romance kept his reputation as the sweet, love-struck guy, but he came this close to being crowned the king of pranks. Heart. Romance's whole representation was always designed to embody love, in flesh, bone, and a whole lot of glitter. Everything about him screams hearts, from the arcs of his hair that form the top half to his sharper chin that looks like the bottom point. It's basically as if his entire face was a walking heart. And it doesn't stop there. His outfit doubles down on the theme with accessories, little chains with mini heart charms, a giant heart pendant on his chest, and even subtle details on his clothes that make him look like he just walked straight out of a Valentine's Day pop-up shop. This symbolism shows up in the song Soda Pop too, when the SAJA Boys decide to throw a street performance. Right after singing, Romance starts tossing hearts into the air like he had bought an infinite supply. One of those hearts even lands on Zoe and literally knocks her down. That detail was intentional from the directors, who wanted to reinforce the idea that Romance was supposed to be the personification of love itself. The goal was simple, to make the audience love him back. But it didn't exactly stick the way they hoped. In one variety show competition in South Korea, for example, the love concept was taken to the extreme, but in a pretty awkward way. Romance had to compete with the hosts to see who could drink the most chili sauce. The twist? He ended up breathing out fire in the shape of a flaming heart. Of course, because he had to stay on brand. It was practically a walking pun. Burning love. The problem was that instead of transmitting passion and cuteness, it left a lot of people kind of confused. For some fans, Romance looked more like a character being forced to be adorable rather than someone naturally charismatic. He had all the symbols, but he was missing that something extra to really win people over. In the end, instead of becoming the personification of love, he ended up being the personification of, we tried, but it didn't really work out. This is the perfect time for you to hit that subscribe button and turn on the bell. That way, no update will ever slip by. Criticism. Life in K-pop might look like pure glamour, but the reality is far from being as dazzling as the spotlight stages. And the SAJA Boys in K-pop Demon Hunters were created precisely to poke at that wound. A lot of people didn't really get the characterization of each member at first, but the truth is that they function as a direct critique of real behaviors in the idol world. In Romance's case, the criticism is clear. The illusion that an idol lives exclusively for the fans. He was designed as a prince in love, always smiling, attentive, and willing to win hearts, even if that meant erasing his own identity. Everything about him is rehearsed to transmit love. But the dark side of that is cruel. When he tries to show who he really is, he runs the risk of seeing his entire career collapse. That contrast mirrors what happens in real life, where idols often can't publicly admit to relationships, opinions, or even hobbies, because fans might feel betrayed. The admiration that should be love turns into a suffocating obsession, where every gesture gets interpreted as a secret message to the fan base. The directors and writers never officially confirmed this was their intent. But let's be real, it's not exactly hard to notice, especially because the movie throws in other digs at the K-pop industry, like the scene where the Huntrix overdo it with food, mocking the aesthetic pressure and the absurd standards idols are forced to live under. In other words, Romance isn't just the guy with the pointy chin and the heart-shaped accessories. He's practically a critical mirror of the intense and sometimes toxic relationship between idols and their fans. The difference is that, in the movie, it came covered in glitter, pop music, and a layer of cuteness. But deep down, the message is way more serious than it looks. FADED. In K-pop Demon Hunters, Romance ended up feeling kind of faded. Part of that comes from the fact that his physical traits aren't exactly the most attractive by fandom standards. The long chin, the slightly shy posture, and the fact that he barely had any lines made it hard for fans to really connect with him. He was there, present, but almost invisible compared to the other members. While baby SAJA won the audience over by being cute, and Mystery intrigued them with his dark vibe, Romance ended up as the charming side character nobody really noticed. The general suspicion is that he probably won't come back, and if he doesn't, it'll be a shame, because he basically never had the chance to show who he truly was. The problem wasn't just his looks or his lack of dialogue, it's that Romance had the potential to be so much more than a cute symbol or a love reference. He could have shown nuances of his personality, his sweetness, and even his humor, but all of that got left behind. In the end, he risks becoming the forgotten member of the group, forever faded, while the others keep shining and winning hearts. At the end of the day, Romance is that kind of character who could have been so much more than just a forgotten sidekick. With his subtle charm, his symbolism of love, and his unique vibe, he had everything it took to win hearts, if only he had been given more space and screen time. If you're into animations, these two videos are a must-watch. Thanks for watching, and see you next time!